live tonight with Stahl Eyecare experts. My name is Elise and I will be hosting tonight's webinar. For an overview of how tonight will go, I'm going to introduce the doctors in answering questions from our viewers. Just a quick housekeeping item, when we have a question for the doctor, you can type it in the chat box on the right-hand side, and we'll do our best to get as many questions answered in the 30 minutes. If you have any technical difficulties, you can also write that in the chat box and we will try and get those fixed quickly. Now I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dr. Werner and Dr. Chang. Dr. Werner received his undergraduate degree from Brown University and his medical degree from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. He completed his ophthalmology residency at the University of Illinois at Chicago and followed with fellowships at the University of Minnesota and Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital. He is board certified eye doctor and is on staff at Lenox Hill Hospital, Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital, Winthrop Hospital, and North Shore University Hospital in New York. Dr. Chang received his bachelor's degree from Harvard University and his MD from UCLA. He completed his ophthalmology residency at Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia, where he also served as chief resident. This was followed by a 2-year fellowship at Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital. Dr. Chang has authored numerous articles and book chapters in ophthalmology and is co-editor of the widely referenced Wills Eye Manual. He is a board-certified eye doctor by the American Board of Ophthalmology and is a fellow of the American Academy of Ophthalmology. Welcome, Dr. Werner and Dr. Chang.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to get started with our first question, which is, what is an astigmatism and does a laser correct that?
Okay, so I'm going to start with that, if that's okay. So first of all, we want to thank everyone for taking the time out of their schedule to tune into this webinar. This is our first webinar, so we hope everything comes across clearly, and we're looking forward to answering your questions. So there isn't a day that goes by that someone tells me, I have astigmatism, can I do laser vision correction? And the answer is almost always yes. Astigmatism basically means that the curvature of your cornea is not perfectly round. And what the laser does is comes out the cornea. And so for years, people thought that people who were not involved in laser vision correction thought that the laser didn't correct that, or they propagated that. But it's not true. Laser has always treated astigmatism. In fact, I would say almost everyone that we treat has at least some astigmatism. Some have more than others. But the laser absolutely treats astigmatism by making the cornea rounder. So it's nothing to be afraid of.
I'm just going to add an extra layer to that explanation. And yes, the great majority of people out there who have astigmatism have what's called regular astigmatism. And for the most part, regular astigmatism is perfectly treatable with laser vision correction, thus allowing patients to achieve excellent vision. There's a small percentage of patients out there who are told they have astigmatism, but as it turns out, they have a form of astigmatism that we characterize as irregular astigmatism. Those patients may or may not be good candidates for laser vision correction. And the only way to know that for sure is to visit with your laser surgeon and go through an evaluation to determine if you're truly a candidate or not.
Awesome. All right, what is bladeless LASIK?
Okay, so let's give a little history lesson. Laser vision correction was really approved in the United States. It was about 20 years ago. And at that time, the procedure that was first approved by the FDA was something called photorefractive keratectomy, which we call PRK. And in PRK, what we would do is brush off the top layer of the cornea, known as the epithelium, and do the laser, and then the top layer would heal. Very effective procedure, but for 2 or 3 days after the procedure, it's not uncommon that the patients have some discomfort, some blurriness, some scratchiness, so it takes a little longer to heal. And then a very bright surgeon in South America actually developed a procedure called LASIK. And in LASIK, instead of brushing off that top layer, you actually lifted up the top layer. And what was very nice about that is once you did the laser and you put the top layer down, there was essentially no discomfort. Patients came in the next day, almost always 20/20, and with no discomfort. The healing was very rapid. And then a company developed a laser so that in the first days of LASIK, when we made that flap, we actually used a blade to do that, which was a very successful procedure. But if there was a complication from the blade, it could sometimes be a significant complication. A new company came out and developed a laser called the Intralase to make that flap in a safer fashion. And about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, we abandoned the use of the blade and we went solely to the use of a laser, the Intralase, to make that flap. And it's a safer way to make the flap. So large laser practices now, for the most part, have abandoned the use of a blade, although some people still use it. It's safer to be a bladeless LASIK. In fact, the company that made the laser, Intralase, has now come out with more recent generations of that laser. We have those lasers, and we just think it's the safest way to go if you're going to do LASIK.
Awesome. We have another question about the astigmatism. I don't know if they missed that from the beginning, but I know you talked a little bit about it. They have an astigmatism, and he asked if he could have LASIK. So
the short answer is probably yes. The great majority of people with astigmatism are good candidates for LASIK. There's a small subset of people with astigmatism, as Dr. Chang alluded to, whose astigmatism is irregular. But for most people, I think the assumption should be that if you see well with glasses or well with regular contact lenses or even toric contact lenses, the great majority of those people, over 93% of them, are good candidates for laser vision correction. Just because you have astigmatism, most likely you're a candidate.
Awesome. Someone asked, is PRK LASIK?
Okay, so PRK, so the big category of the procedure is called laser vision correction. And generally speaking, there's two types of laser vision correction. One is called PRK, one is called LASIK. PRK and LASIK, and the studies that have looked at them, have exactly the same results. And the difference really is how quickly they heal. PRK stands for photorefractive keratectomy. And what we do in PRK is brush off the surface, we do the laser, and then it takes a few days for the surface to heal. And in LASIK, instead of brushing off the surface, we lift up the top layer, we do the laser, and then we put the top layer down. LASIK heals quicker. PRK has some other benefits in terms of long-term stability in some patients. The good news is they have exactly the same results. The basic difference is the healing. They're both different types of laser vision correction. I can tell you I did LASIK on my mother. I did PRK on my sister and cousin. So, and they're all still speaking to me, which is a good thing.
Awesome.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I should add also that there are surgeons out there who market their PRK procedures under different names. And don't be confused. Unfortunately, we as ophthalmologists add to the confusion. But PRK is also termed surface ablation because we're basically removing material from the very surface of the cornea after the top layer is removed. And there are surgeons who call their PRK procedure LASEK, L-A-S-E-K. Some call it epi-LASIK, EPI LASIK. Don't be fooled, it's PRK. Not that it's any different or any inferior than LASIK. It's going to be a longer healing process as opposed to what everyone has come to understand as LASIK, where a flap is created on the cornea surface that's reflected. The treatment is done underneath the flap, and then the flap is put back over the treated area, so the healing takes place much more quickly.
Awesome. Someone would like to know, how safe is LASIK?
So LASIK is, first of all, there's an extremely high level of consumer satisfaction. I think in a recent study of all the surgical procedures out there, it has the highest level of satisfaction. And for the right candidate, and that I have to stress, right candidate, it's an extremely safe procedure. What we've learned with our experience of doing this for 20 years is who we think is a good candidate and who is not a good candidate. But for the right candidate, it's an extremely safe procedure. In fact, the study out of the University of Ohio, I believe it was, show that it's probably safer for most patients than the long-term use of contact lenses. So although we think contact lenses are safe, there's not a week that goes by where we don't see someone with a serious contact lens related infection. And LASIK is, for the right candidate, again, that's really the most important point, a very, very safe and effective procedure.
Okay. I have someone that asked if LASIK wears off. Their dad had it 10-ish years ago, and it doesn't work as good as it did before.
Okay, so as we age, our eyes, for most of us, change. And although for most patients, LASIK is a once-in-a-lifetime procedure, some patients will regress a little bit. I don't think I've ever seen anyone get back to where their first prescription was. So if someone's prescription was -5, let's say, and we do the procedure, and for the few years they're 20/20, they might come in 10 years later with a small, maybe -0.5 prescription. The good news is it doesn't happen for most patients. Again, for most patients, this is a one-time procedure. And the other good news is, for the great majority of those for whom it happens, we can do an enhancement where we do a little more laser. So it's almost always something we can address. But the other important point is, we see patients all the time, maybe they had the procedure 20 years ago, and they call us up and they say, my vision's not quite as good as it was, and they come in, and it's not the fact that the laser has regressed, it's maybe they have something else going on, most likely a cataract developing, which is a different part of the eye and requires a different procedure. The good news is we can take care of that too. So we tell our patients, should they notice any change in their vision, don't assume it's that the LASIK has worn off necessarily. They should come in and be evaluated for us to figure out exactly what's going on.
Great, thank you. I have another person that asked kind of similar. What are the chances that after LASIK you might need reading glasses? His father had LASIK and he didn't need glasses before, but may need reading glasses now.
Presumably, the individual who needs reading glasses now was destined to need reading glasses now, whether they had laser corrective surgery or not, because that is a fact of life. The average individual in the United States, when they reach age 43, will need reading glasses. It's called presbyopia, for which there is no corrective treatment. Laser corrective surgery will not address presbyopia. So an individual who's rendered, the term is emetropia, being able to see 20/20 at a distance without the aid of glasses or contact lenses, say in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, when they reach 43 or beyond, they're going to have difficulties up close, reading their phone, reading their mail, reading fine print on the medicine model. They will need reading glasses. That is true whether they had laser corrective surgery or not. So having laser surgery does not render you more in need of reading glasses or put you at a disadvantage of needing reading glasses in the future.
So let me give you an example. I had a 34-year-old teacher here today who wants to do LASIK. And I said, if you don't do LASIK, if you stay in your contact lenses, in about 10 years, you will need over-the-counter reading glasses over your contact lenses. If you do the procedure, in 10 years, you'll still need the reading glasses, but you shouldn't need the contacts anymore. So, and I said, I'm 52 years old. I have good distance vision. I've always had good distance vision, but I need my over-the-counter reading glasses. So that's just part of the natural aging of the eye. LASIK doesn't bring it on any sooner, but it doesn't prevent it either.
Okay, great. I have a sports question. I play basketball. What if I get hit in my eye?
So we never recommend getting hit in the eye. Number one, whether or not you've had LASIK, but it's a fact. People get hit in the eye. So in LASIK, there's a flap on the cornea, and the flap gets put back, and that flap seals down pretty quickly. So we've done 50,000 procedures, something like that. And I think in our 20 years of doing that, I've only seen one person who was scratched in the eye by a cat with a flap dislocated. Fortunately, she came in. We positioned the flap back to where it should, and she's perfectly fine. And had she not had LASIK, that same cat scratch would have caused a significant problem with her cornea anyway. So The important thing is if you get hit in the eye, whether or not you've had LASIK, you want to go to see your eye doctor. But LASIK doesn't predispose you to any significantly more problems than you otherwise would have had.
Right. By undergoing corrective surgery, either LASIK or PRK, it doesn't compromise your quality of life once you're fully healed. Yes, the first week or two after surgery, you're going to be cautioned about getting hit in the eye, getting poked in the eye, but ultimately, you should be at no disadvantage simply because you have corrective surgery. You can't do this, you can't do that. No, not true at all. You can absolutely go on and play basketball.
And in fact, we operated on a few hundred firemen. Wasn't a problem. We operated on a few hundred people going to fight in the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. Wasn't a problem. So, and we operate all the time on policemen. So even in people who are in high, and also kickboxers, MMA fighters. So people who are in high risk industries, have had this surgery without complications.
Great. I have a question that I'm sure everyone's wondering is how much is LASIK?
Just like MasterCard says, priceless is our answer. So our standard fee for laser vision correction is $2,700. 2 points, however. First of all, we have a price match guarantee because we're aware that other people advertise a much lower price, but for the most part, those lower prices are for inferior, what we consider inferior procedures. So our guarantee to our patients is, should you find anyone using the state-of-the-art technology that we use, we will match their price. So we don't want anyone to feel like we're taking advantage of them. The other thing is we offer an interest-free financing. So a lot of our patients take advantage of financing the procedure over 2 years with 0% interest. And then the last thing is there's a summer program that we're offering now where patients receive, I think, $600 off should they have should they meet us sometime in August, should they come into the office in August. And there's also a pair of sunglasses included with that.
Ray-Bans or Oakleys.
Yes. Awesome.
Which that brings me, I'm going to add a pop-in on the right-hand side of your screen. You will see it. It will offer what you just said for the LASIK screening. Yes, they're offering $1,200 off eye LASIK, and if you do get it done in the month of August, you'll receive a pair of Ray-Bans, Maui Jims, or Oakley sunglasses. And this will take you to a new window, but it will not leave the webinar, so do not worry about that. The next question I have is, what is eye LASIK? Is there a difference between eye LASIK and LASIK?
So LASIK was the standard name for the procedure that we did when we used a blade. And then, as I mentioned before, or for anyone tuning in now, we no longer use a blade. We use a machine called the intralaser. In fact, we use the most modern generation of that equipment. And so some people have shortened the procedure instead of saying intralaser LASIK to eye LASIK, or sometimes it's called bladeless LASIK. These are all the same thing. It means basically that we're making the flap in a safer fashion. We're not using a blade. We're using the intralaser, all laser technology.
Great. And one last question. Someone asked, is that $2,700 per eye, or is that for both eyes?
That's $2,700 per eye, but with the discounts, it works out to the total cost is about $4,000 for both eyes. And actually, this raises an interesting point. And patients always look at me like I'm from Mars when I bring this up, but now's as good a time as any to bring it up. There are many patients for whom we see who we actually only recommend doing one eye. And patients, for many reasons, some people come in, maybe they're 50 years old, they've got good reading vision, but they can't see far away. And we tell them, if we do both of your eyes for distance, you're going to need reading glasses. And I tell a lot of these people, again, they have to have the right prescription, they have to be the right age, to just do one eye. And people always look at me like I'm from Mars. And we do one eye. And these are some of my happiest patients because they achieve good distance vision and they don't give up their reading vision. Other people come in, and actually their prescription is, when we measure them, when we do very exact measurements of their eye, we find out their prescriptions are not as bad as they thought they were. And a lot of times we tell people, look, your right eye is your dominant eye, or maybe it's your left eye, whatever it is. Let's just do that dominant eye. Your other eye is not that bad. And again, the way we learn that is when the laser first came out in I think it was late 95, we only did one eye at a time. It was new technology. And some of those patients went home and they came back a week later and they said, I've achieved what I want. I don't even notice that the other eye isn't done. And we're like, that makes a lot of sense. And our goal is to do as little as possible, really, to get the patient as happy as possible. So for many patients, one eye is all we need to do.
Great. I have one that says, let's say I decide to get LASIK done. What should I expect during and after the procedure? How long does it take? Will I lose vision for a while? What is the recovery time?
So that differs whether you're undergoing LASIK or the PRK procedure we have mentioned earlier. Let's confine our comments to LASIK. So the LASIK procedure typically takes about 6 minutes or so per eye in the laser suite. We're using, again, 2 lasers in sequence, the femtosecond laser to make the flap, then the excimer laser to correct the vision. Patients will say right after the procedure is done, wow, I'm seeing things I didn't see 15 minutes ago before I walked into the room. Things are a little cloudy and hazy, not like when I wore glasses for contact lenses, but much improved. We say, yes, exactly. Expect your vision to be a little hazy for the remainder of the day. You're going to go home, relax. I'm sure you're all worked up. You want to go lie down, take a nap, rest, whatever. Your vision will become much less hazy as the day goes on. Get a good night's sleep. Tomorrow morning, you're going to be seeing great. We expect to see you back in the office for a checkup, and I fully expect you to be able to drive yourself without assistance of glasses or contact lenses back into the office. But yes, the first couple hours, you're not going to see that great. Your eyes are going to feel a little irritated, a little scratchy. That's why we recommend patients to go home and just, take a nap, close their eyes, and rest.
But actually, right before the procedure, what we do on the day of the procedure is something called custom view measurements, which are actually pretty important. So one thing a lot of patients hate when they go to the eye doctor is answering which is better, 1 or better 2. I'm not sure, 1 is better, maybe 2 is better. And patients get all worked up about whether or not we actually use those measurements for their laser surgery, with the concern being that I'm not sure if 1 was better or 2 is better, and what's the doctor going to put in the machine. So we almost always use a technology called custom view technology. And what custom view technology does is it shines a light in the patient's eye and measures how the light comes back to the computer. And it gives us a very exact measurement of the person's prescription, much more exact than anything we can get in the examination rooms. We use those measurements in the laser that corrects your eye. So those custom view measurements, which are very important for the procedure, that also takes about 10 minutes before the procedure. But our philosophy is measure many times, cut once, because we want to do this once and we want to do this right.
We don't cut.
We don't cut, we use a laser. But and if you have the PRK procedure, which we still do maybe 30% of the time, also you'll get off the table. I can't remember the last person who didn't see the clock across the room when they sat up, but it's a few days of healing, so your eyes will feel scratchy and it'll be a little blurry for a few days. But once it heals, all of our patients think it's well worth the efforts.
Again, the few days is the PRK patients. Patients who are treated with LASIK are generally going to enjoy a much faster recovery and rehabilitation of their vision.
Most go to work the next day.
Great. That was another question, was how long would I have to take off work? So you answered that one.
Yeah, we have patients who have LASIK done, and you know what? I wish I could come in tomorrow morning for my follow-up, but I have to go to work. Can I come in tomorrow afternoon? Fine.
No problem.
Awesome.
And then one of our busier days is Friday, because patients just want to take the weekend to recover, although most of them drive here the next day and enjoy their good vision right away.
Great. What are the next steps if I decide to go ahead and get LASIK?
Well, the first step is really for you to come into the office, and actually one of us or our other partner, Dr. Huffnagel, we actually do the consultations ourselves. We think it's important that you meet your surgeon. So you'll come into the office. We're going to show you a 10-minute video or so that goes through the basics of the procedure. Then we want to talk to you about what your expectations are. We want to get some measurements of your eye to make sure that you're a good candidate. Now, ideally, when you come in for those measurements, it would be great if you could have your contacts out for 3 days or so before the procedure, because in some patients, contact lenses can actually warp the cornea. And so if someone comes in wearing contacts, we can talk to them about the procedure. We can go through all the details about how it will affect their lifestyle, etc. But it may not be possible for us to do all the measurements we need to further counsel them. So we do have patients, though, who come in, they haven't had glasses in 10 years, and we're happy to meet with them. But if possible, we'd like you out of your contact lenses for 3 days before.
Great. Well, to wrap this up, like I said, I want to keep it under 30 minutes. Remember to go over to the pop-in, and you can type in the comments section that you attended tonight and received that offer of the $1,200 off and the Ray-Bans, Maui Jims, or Oakleys. And if your question did not get answered tonight, I'm going to type in the side here an email address that you could send your questions to. And then we'll go ahead, and I want to thank both doctors for coming tonight. And yeah, we'll wrap it up. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, we appreciate this opportunity. It's our first time doing a webinar. It seems like a great way to meet patients in an informal setting. And should you have any questions, we're always happy to answer them. And should you like to come in and meet us, it would absolutely be our pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again, and thank you for attending our live webinar.
Our pleasure.